Good morning. My name is Matt Minner with Catalyst Connection, and I'd like to welcome you to our digital discovery webinar series for today. Today we're going to be talking with Delta Bravo, and we have JH Morris on the line. How are you doing, JH?
Hey, Matt, doing pretty well today. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks so much for joining us. And you may notice the absence of our faces at the moment. GoToWebinar's thrown us a curveball, and that option seems to be gone right now. So we'll have to address that another time, but you'll have to make do just with the listening in for today and the presentation that John has for us today. So then that's going to be all around AI, industrial analytics, and the focus around results and not a lot of the hype and the buzzwords, jargon, etc. So we look forward to hearing from JH on that. But just before we dive into that, I'm just going to cover a real quick overview on Digital Bridge, the program through the Economic Development Administration, who's making this whole webinar series possible. This is a 2023 Build Back Better program that is part of the Southwestern Pennsylvania New Economy Coalition. This was what brought upwards of $65 million to the region, and Catalyst is running one of those 5 projects, and our focus is around supporting our manufacturers here in the region with technology adoption. It's led by Catalyst, we have a number of key partners through the region, including University of Pittsburgh, working on a focused student project initiative. This is a really great opportunity to engage with the future workforce and have them focus on a project that maybe has been on your back burner. At MFI from this Carnegie Mellon University, Digital Foundry in New Kensington, the Tech Council, and JARI all supporting on this project. So there's a lot of resources that this program is able to bring forth to our manufacturers. So if you like more information, certainly reach out. And just to those points, it includes technical assistance, so access to technology, R&D and demonstration facilities, access to capital, which some of you on the line are exploring ways to take advantage of, workforce development, and I mentioned the graduate student projects through Pitt. It's called the Pennsylvania Robotics and Technology Fellowship. So really intended to support you with your technology related projects. Oops, went a little too far. And for those types of projects, while we are focused around the robotics and technology, robotics and automation, it goes across the spectrum, which is why we've got JH on the line today with us to talk to us about AI and those applications into manufacturing. So the whole range of Industry 4.0 technologies. And then finally, this is the webinar series. So we look forward to you joining with future sessions. And our next one will be on March 14th, talking about the augmented enterprise, another approach towards leveraging AI, and that will be with our partner Problem Solutions. Their focus is more around AI-assisted agents and leveraging your internal documentation and all of the like. So a lot of exciting things there as well. But today we're going to turn it back here to JH and Delta Bravo, and we really want to hear around their focus areas. They've got some really practical approaches to leveraging AI. So I've just made you the presenter, JH, so I'll let you take it from here.
Cool. And are you seeing my screen here?
Your slides are up. And
okay.
Just before JH gets started, those on the line, please, if you've got questions, just go ahead and pop them in the chat. I'll be watching, and we'll make this as interactive as possible, even though, again, you're not seeing our faces this time, but I think we can do it. So I'll be watching the chat. If you got questions, just pop them in there and we will pose them to JH.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Y'all don't get to see my faces as you bring forward the questions, and I look at them in real time. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but that is what it is. But guys, good to Good to be with you all this morning. My name is J.H. Morris. I lead our growth efforts in manufacturing for Delta Bravo, and I'm excited to talk about this topic because it's one that we're very passionate about. And there's a lot of noise in the market, and there's a lot of real results in the market, and we're going to talk about a little bit what those look like here. So I want to start out by talking about what this presentation is not. This presentation is not a plethora of McKinsey studies or boring graphics or charts or whatnot. No consulting buzzwords. I want to talk about what Delta Bravo is passionate about and what we've seen with our customer base. And I've sat through one too many webinars with the aforementioned there, and I definitely don't want to be one that holds one of those. And so let's have some fun together, even though you can't see my face on video. But we're passionate about this, and this is why we want to drive this conversation here. So the things we'll go over quickly today, one, why this matters. Why are people talking about this? Why are people investing in this? Two, who is Delta Bravo even, and why are we qualified to present on this? Three, want to encourage you to think about machine learning and AI a little bit differently than a lot of the noise in the market. And then four, want to provide some frameworks for success, ways that we see customers really go and do this in both in-house and then also we're working with Delta Bravo there. So one, let's jump into this right off the bat here. Why does this matter? And if you think about like the history of manufacturing, oftentimes these problems that manufacturers have run into have come with mechanical solutions to solve those problems. But as the growing complexity of manufacturing operations has occurred, these mechanical solutions don't necessarily stand up. They can fall down, and digital solutions oftentimes thrive a lot more because of this complexity, because of the layered stacking on top of each other of variables, things along that front. So one, it matters because this is a new way to solve new problems that lead to better outcomes oftentimes, nothing against mechanical solutions. And then two, there's really staunch competition in both the workforce and for market share. Our business is down in South Carolina, right below Charlotte, North Carolina, and around South Carolina, they're opening up new facilities every single week. And all those facilities want the same workers. And so there's a big competition for workforce, and most of our customers can't hire the people they need to run their business. And so there's going to be a gap that forms in the market, and there's already one that's forming where technical solutions that can make people more efficient, things on those fronts, are going to thrive. And then two, market share too. With stiff competition from India, Mexico, China, whatnot, margins get squeezed. You've got to be able to make production happen in a more efficient manner. And we see these solutions as ways that customers and people like yourself can go out and do that. So that's really, that's why we see that this matters here. And so, and I also, one thing I'll say this too, is a lot of customers expect these kind of off-the-shelf black box AI type solutions to provide them these outcomes that they desire. And that is just a far cry from the truth of what generally can happen. So who is Delta Bravo in this overall machine learning AI plant floor technology conversation? One, I'll say that we're a partner to those who have generally invested in data collection. And they want to do more with that data. They want to make that data actionable. They want to use that data to improve throughput, to improve quality, to reduce waste, to improve operating margin, that kind of thing. But oftentimes the data needed to execute on these use cases is siloed, or maybe it's overwhelming, or maybe they don't have the in-house technical team. Our manufacturing customers don't have this team needed to help execute on these use cases because they lack the time, skills, tools to do so. And so we partner with these companies to go and lead to the outcomes that we'll talk about in just a minute here. So one, what we bring to the table here is experience. And I'll talk about this on the next slide, but guys, we have screwed this up several times for several years. And that is something that we've learned from a whole ton and learnings that we bring to customers. But two, we've had this be really successful too. And we'll talk a little about what that looks like. And that's because of proven processes and experience. And we found, guys, that ultimately, we have got good technology, we've got good people, but we're a process improvement company, and we do that process improvement through data science and development of these industrial AI models. And then two, with the people and the processes, we bring the right technology. We've got our own platform that we use to do this for customers, and we develop these persona-based AI co-pilots that sit at very specific points in the manufacturing process and help very specific operators tackle very specific problems. And we found that that is a way to make this data actionable far beyond, OEE dashboards and things along those fronts. So let's get into a little bit more about how experience has been our teacher. So for the first several years of our business, our CEO affectionately calls this our pilot hell period. This is from 2017 to 2019. I think that we figured out every single way to do this wrong because this was new field. A lot of people weren't collecting the data needed, and you've got to develop processes internally to make you be able to deliver things to customers that are of more value. But for the last 4 years, we feel like we've really got this tuned in and are starting to see these type of ROI numbers that cause people to want to invest in this this type of technology. And so experience really has been our teacher there. And it's why I'm asking you today to think about AI a little bit differently. We see this field differently. We've been in this field for a long time. And I'm encouraging you today to think a little bit about more from a different angle than you generally see. And so let's reframe this conversation overall. I just pulled these straight off Google yesterday, AI driven, powered by AI driven, AI powered. We are at a saturation point with these marketing headlines. And this is honestly the current state of the market. And if I had $1 for every single time I both saw these headlines or had a plant director tell me that they're already doing AI, aka they've got their own ChatGPT instance, I could probably actually afford one of these more expensive AI powered solutions. And so these are oftentimes very sexy use cases. This generative AI concept is really sexy and people are talking about all the things it can do, but oftentimes when you get down to it with manufacturers, they're more general, they're more nebulous use cases, and they don't provide the value that you want to hear. So I want to talk today about and move this conversation towards making this plant floor data, your operations data, more actionable, more usable, and that's really what we're going to focus on today. And so let's think about what actual industrial AI can look like with your operations and plant floor data. And a really good example that we've used oftentimes to discuss this with the customer is a Rubik's Cube. So if you think about the complexity of a Rubik's Cube, there are 43 quintillion combinations that can be on the different faces of a Rubik's Cube. And, thinking about what this looks like for our customers, someone that I've been talking to the last couple of weeks, a customer of mine, makes pasta. And, you think 43 quintillion combinations, pasta seems pretty easy. It's some flour, some water, some other solutions. It's not that easy. And so what we've been trying to do with this customer is predict the moisture profile as it goes throughout the batch to optimize the inputs. And so we think about what those are. Maybe that's temperature. Maybe that's humidity, maybe that's pressure in the press process, maybe that's the absorption rate of the moisture, maybe the production schedule on which they're running, maybe that's over or under mixing as part of the beginning of the process, maybe that's different suppliers, different things come into spec in different ranges, ambient conditions, seasonality, things along those lines, and tolerance ranges. And that is a lot of variables that can impact this moisture profile as part of making pasta a very basic process. And so how do we understand all these relationships? And then what combinations of these relationships actually matter? What combinations cause this moisture profile to leave an ideal range or to come into an ideal range? And that is where we see, and it's solutions like industrial AI be able to really help us out a whole ton. We can bring together these data sets that capture all these variables here, and then we can use even just the most basic machine learning models to help perform that analysis and to set those baselines for us. And then once we build that model, we can then take the results of that model and we can give operators specific instructions at specific points in this process about what of these variables to optimize, which of these set points to adjust to keep that overall best profile of moisture throughout the process. And that's how I want you to think about this a little bit differently. It's more a scenario model or a simulator or whatnot. That's oftentimes how we see customers that have spent money on basic data collection. Those are the ways we're able to see them, those are use cases that we're able to see them move towards because they've got the data to do this. And so getting more granular here and more specific what this could look like for specific manufacturers, this is a great engagement that we did with Rolls-Royce Power System. These guys make in their Aiken, South Carolina facility, which is kind of down close to the coast and kind of Augusta, Georgia area. They make over 24 different industrial engine types. And guys, these are their big boy motors and big boy transmissions. These are things that go in ships, into mining, into their trains, things like that. You can't see the room I'm in, but engines that are as big as the room that I'm sitting in right here. And guys, why we got plugged into this is they had a really big quality challenges. At the completion of the manufacturing process, they were doing this rigorous end-of-line testing. And what Rolls-Royce was having trouble with was the subtle indicators of problems would go unnoticed, even by the most experienced operators. And when that occurred, you have a big warranty issue in the field because a motor would explode within the first 1,000 miles or whatnot, or it would even explode in the test cell and you've got scrap and you've got an engine that's worth 800 grand full of scrap parts at this point. And so what they brought us in here to do is, can we use AI to better understand and predict and maybe even ultimately avoid these failures? And that's what we got brought in to do with these guys. So if you think about the process that we took here, this is kind of a little bit more techie data science, but I think it's worth noting here. First, we took the data in and we better understood what constitutes good and bad behavior. What are those acceptable metric ranges? What were the stoppage events? And kind of understanding the data and being able to build a base layer there. And then, hey, what were those anomalies that were occurring at this time of failure? And did they actually have any correlation to the negative outcome of an engine exploding? So was that just a blip on the radar, or did that contribute to the factor overall? And so once we helped identify these patterns, we look at things at the 1 minute, at the exact time of failure, at the 1 minute before failure, at the 5 minutes before failure, and at 30 minutes before failure. We understood which variables mattered to these time brackets. And then we're able to generate this prediction model. And this was, we were able to predict we were able to create this prediction model. And then we were actually able to integrate this alert mechanism based off that model into an existing 21-year-old eye test system that all their operators have been using for a long time. And I'll talk about that again in just a second. So we built this model after we understood their data, and we deployed this model, and the results speak for themselves on this engagement right here. Rolls-Royce, after applying this solution, they started to see 90% reductions in defects. This ended up saving them $4 to $5 million in a year. After we tweaked the model a little bit further, we have 0 false positives. And this is all within the first 6 months in a year. And these guys are coming to us and saying, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened here. There's no process disruption. And that was because we were able to integrate with their existing test system and stop the test and tell operators exactly what areas of the test went wrong and what changes to make to ensure that test passes the next go around. And so the ROI on this engagement here was a 10x, and it's actually Rolls-Royce's best ROI across all of their Industry 4.0 projects. And it was really cool to see too, on a little bit more of a personal level. We worked with Steve, you can see down here, a manufacturing engineer. We worked with a guy named Kyle, and we worked with a lady named Christina. And as a result of this engagement, all those 3 individuals got promoted. They got to go and present at Rolls-Royce global conferences, and really elevate themselves personally and elevate their careers, and also really solve big, meaningful problems for Rolls-Royce. And so you're probably sitting here on this call and saying, okay, I'm not Rolls-Royce, because most people aren't. And so you're asking yourself the question, can I do this too? What does this look like for me? And I think that's a very valuable question there. And I would say, yes, this can be you, but this does not happen overnight. Rolls-Royce did not roll out of bed and be able to throw together this model and be deployed into production. Rolls-Royce had been methodical about the way they captured data for a long time. And they really worked to develop this data foundation. They started getting into this data visualization layer too after they've spent time collecting it. And what we call at that point is their data maturity journey. Rolls-Royce was maturing along this journey, and through this engagement, before this engagement, they'd already developed this situational awareness to help them know how to solve the problems. But as they continued to build this maturity, the use cases they were able to tackle through this grow in value. Data visualization is not something that's going to save you $4 to $5 million a year. It's these industrial model deployment. Those are the places that you're really going to save the big bucks. And so even what I'll say this too, moving up this maturity journey is not always easy for everyone. And this is, taking it one step at a time, taking this gradual approach, setting the foundation in place, building a little on top of that, building a little on top of that, understanding your team's internal capabilities for being able to take you to the next step, and understanding if that's partnership with an external firm to do this, or if you can develop this internally with the tools and the people that you've already got. And oftentimes, I know that like the target market for Catalyst Connection in this program overall is small to medium-sized manufacturers. And guys, I'll say, before, hey, this is going to change your life, anything along those lines, sometimes this is not even needed. Really large gains can be seen just by, the injection of advanced analytics, or just by, some basic predictive analytics, as many of you probably seen with predictive maintenance and maybe even some predictive quality type stuff. So you don't always have to go all the way to the ML, the AI layer to see the results. In fact, most people, going from 0 to 1 as opposed to 0 to 5, a lot of people see results at 1 to 2, 2 to 3, that kind of thing. And so you don't necessarily have to go all the way up the maturity journey to start experiencing some of these results. You can really start experiencing these after you've established that situational awareness, and you can start to drive some of these kind of a little bit more plant floor type use cases here. And so to do this, guys, like I said, our customers didn't roll on the other side of the bed, roll out of bed in the morning and say, let's do this. There's really 3 key focus areas and a couple of frameworks that we've seen that people that have done these plant floor analytics and AI use cases successfully, there's 3 key focus areas that these guys have really nailed. And the first of this is use case. And this is the framework that we use internally when we talk with our customers to help pick use cases. And it's one we see our customers then take and move towards and use themselves in the way in which they prioritize use cases internally. And so what we call this is our ROI triangle, and we think there are 3 legs of this triangle. The first leg of this triangle is the measurable ROI. ROI, language of the business. We need to be able to measure the results of doing an engagement like this. How much money do we lose when machines go down? And if we're able to, increase uptime by 4% on this line, what does that matter? What does that matter to the bottom line? If we're able to reduce scrap by 10%, reduce scrap by 3%, what does that mean to the bottom line? Is that a gamble you're worth taking, or is that an engagement you're going to do right there? What's the cost of poor quality? Are you losing out on better customer contracts because of that? You know what I mean? Not just like plant floor type stuff, but you got to think like top line revenue too. We're missing out on additional opportunities for new revenue sources by being able to go and get higher grade and sell higher grade steel to DoD customers, for example. And so you've got to have that measurable financial result, but also too, you've got to have the capability results. Are people getting better technology to make them better at their job? Are you able to reduce this employee training time? Are you able to reduce the onboarding time? Can you make people valuable to the business faster? Because it's easier for them to learn the process because we've made it easier for them. These are all things that are what to consider as part of that capability ROI. And the last part of here is this competitive advantage kind of scale type portion. If we're able to make a 3% improvement on each line and you've got 20 lines, is that going to give you a competitive advantage in the marketplace? Are you going to be able to reduce your cost per unit to internal metrics that you're really, really happy about, and you're able to make new decisions because you've got more capital on hand? Like how does this give you an ability to stand out from your competition if this were to be scaled across all plants? You don't want to do kind of blip in the ocean type use cases. You want something that can be scaled across multiple processes here. And that's really, really important for us too. We generally encourage customers not to move towards like one-off use cases that are more nebulous in nature. And so we've got the use case that you have to have. Now let's talk about the data that generally feeds these type of use cases. And we call this the holy grail data sets. And guys, there are really 4 of these, and they're pretty basic here. So if you think about process data, this is data coming from MES systems, PLC, SCADA, things like that. That's oftentimes data we see collected even at small and mid-sized manufacturers. You think about your order and BOM data. This comes from your ERP system. That's generally pretty readily available, what we see. And then, you think about your in-process quality checks and, your end-of-line passing and failure type data. Those are all things that need to be recorded as well. And if we've got these 4 data sets, you're generally able to frame up a pretty good engagement here. And one question that I get asked a lot as part of this process is, hey, does physical documentation count? And so what I would say on that front is physical documentation is helpful in basic kind of root cause analysis in the beginning of some of this deeper analysis. But if you're going to deploy an industrial like machine learning model, even like the basic like random forest type model or whatnot, you generally can't get this real-time collected via paper. You've got to work on digitizing certain parts of the process. And that's actually something that we've seen a lot of success with customers, is giving them the information or giving them the ability to do that on an iPad or on Windows through a web-based interface or whatnot, and working on digitally collecting that is part of that digital maturity journey that leads to the ability to execute on some of these use cases. And so we've got use cases, we've got data, and the third part here, which I'm sure I'm not surprising anybody, is people. What we see at these engagements is there are multiple stakeholders as part of this process, and nothing against any of my IT friends in the room here, but this is not an IT project overall. And the reason for that being is IT ultimately doesn't own the outcomes of what happened here. Their bonuses aren't tied to production metrics. The KPIs and the use cases and things like that, they're not acutely impacting the IT team generally. It's we got to have people that are in the boat that their bonuses are tied to, efficient operations. Their bonuses are tied to hitting certain production targets. You got to have people that are stakeholders in this process, that know the use cases, that know the process inside and out, and know where changes can be made, know what variables are influenceable, can help a company like a Delta Bravo, or maybe if you've got like a citizen data scientist, understand independent and dependent variables to build out these type of solutions. But you've got to then pair that with your IT team, make sure this integrates well with your existing infrastructure, integrates well with the other systems that you've got in play there. And so it's really just bringing everybody to the table and getting people on the same page there. This is rarely, if not never, not a cross-functional engagement. And it has to be so whether you partner with an external firm or if you do this internally. It's got to be one that we're all on the same page for. And there's got to be an aptitude to do it too. Oftentimes, you go and spend money on getting data visualized and you'll upset people because they're like, well, where's the return on that? There's very rarely a return on just visualizing data. It's saying, hey, we're putting the steps in process to be able to go and execute on some of these higher value, higher dollar use cases that we showed as part of that maturity journey. So the three kind of big focus areas are, the right use case, the right data, and the right people at the table. And what I'll say, guys, to finish out here is this is probably more in reach than what people expect here. Some of those generative AI type use cases seem very, very far away and very nebulous, but we've helped customers that are very early in their journey, in their basic data collection journey, see real measurable results to quality, to maintenance, to all these type of things, by doing work based off those kind of 4 data sets as seen in the Holy Grail data set. So with the right people in place and the right processes and the right data collection processes, this is a lot closer than what most people expect here. And it's really just a matter of being able to score the right use case internally, understand the data you've got, and be able to get the people that need to be in the boat to execute on this. So Matt, 2 minutes to spare right here. I kept it in our 30-minute time limit. Have we had anything that comes up any questions that have come up in the chat so far about what we've talked about?
Yeah, we have a couple, and yeah, fantastic information. Thanks so much for going through that, JH. And just a reminder for everyone on the line, if you have any questions from what JH has gone through, either in the chat or the little questions drop down, go ahead and throw those in. But we'll go ahead and get to, let's see here. The first question around, you had the kind of that 5-step AI journey, or for what type of journey did you call that? Was it AI journey?
Yeah, data maturity journey.
Data maturity journey. Do you have, just maybe talking in general terms, obviously everyone's different, but the question was around, what are typical timeframes you see? If you've got a company that's engaged and working, is that 1 to 5, is that a 6-month process, or you talk, what, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, 100%. So the maturity journey is one that lasts, that's a lifetime right there. That's not like a 6 months in and we're done kind of thing. Generally, when we get involved with companies is after, as I mentioned on that first slide, they've already invested in data collection. They've kind of got some of that going. And so oftentimes to stage one of these engagements, let's say that you wanted to do a predictive quality engagement where you want to be able to predict moisture, like I talked about earlier with the pasta. you want to predict the moisture profile. So what that generally looks like to start out with is about a 1 to 2 month data readiness assessment. So before anybody, before a customer strokes a larger check for a pilot engagement or a production engagement, we want to make sure that they've got the data needed to execute on one of those use cases. And so generally that takes about 1 to 2 months. And so at the end of that, we'll be able to say, hey, we feel really good about your data and the viability of it for building one of these models. Let's go and do that there. And then that generally takes about an extra 2 months or so on top of that, maybe 3 months to go and then develop that model and then deploy it into production. And so, you know, what you're looking at is 6 months in, you've got a viable model that's deployed in production that addresses a very specific problem on the manufacturing line. So I would say 6 months is generally what that could look like. But often, I mean, if a customer can move faster than that and provide data faster, you can get that moving faster. But oftentimes we feel like that is the hard part, is customer data, getting all of that in order and getting your data house in order. And that does take a little bit of time and working together.
Okay, all right, well, thanks. And then the last one we've got, what do you think for, especially towards the small and mediums, I'm sure you've had probably a lot more discussions with them than maybe you've had, you know, projects go, but what do you think the key attributes when it comes to success and just progress for the small and medium manufacturer? I mean, is it having the data, or is it more the people and the desire to progress on the technology side? What do you see as those key factors?
Yeah, the desire is important in the buy-in. You know what I mean? Every dollar you spend as a small manufacturer is a dollar that's not going elsewhere. And that's obviously true for larger manufacturers too, but dollars are acutely scrutinized at smaller manufacturers. And so it's saying, hey, we're going to do the 3-year play here. We can't just think next month, you know what I mean? And not everybody has that ability to do just based off financials and market conditions and things along those lines. But it's, hey, let's buy into this. And then I think too, Matt, it's really starting like digestibly and small. So if you're a small to mid-sized manufacturer and you come to me and say, hey, I want to deploy this AI model, I'm be like, whoa. Let's look at some like basic advanced analytics. Like, do you understand your tolerance range as well? You know what I mean? Do you understand some of these basic factors? And also too, like there is a lot of low hanging fruit we see in this too. Like, you know, to talk about some other things kind of in the sphere, like AI vision inspection, that is an amazing tool to make sure that the right project or the right materials and the right finished goods roll off the manufacturing line. You know what I mean? Take that, build that into so you're not shipping bad parts to customers or to whoever, you know what I mean? And then use that as a data source to then do some predictive quality to work upstream to understand what some of the things are causing, you know what I mean, these non-passing items. And so I really think it really is a matter of taking some like digestible steps and not trying to crush it all in one outing there. Get some wins from advanced analytics, get some people in the boat that said, get some process engineers that are really skeptical, that, you know, think that there's no way this is going to work, show them some real value, and then you've got buy-in from people that are on the floor that are living this type of thing, and then they'll open up and say, oh man, let's try this too, let's try this too, let's try that too. And so for us, like that stair-step approach is just really, really important, because most manufacturers, big or small, you know, you think like the Nucor Steels of the world, they can't take massive changes to their processes, you know what I mean, just like a small manufacturer can't. So you got to work incrementally with them. And that advice is true across the size of a manufacturer, regardless of big or small.
Well, fantastic. And I appreciate your time, JH. And again, those on the line, if you have further questions, you have JH's contact info, and feel free to reach out to me as well. We can coordinate follow-up discussions, etc. So thank you once more, JH, and everyone have a great day.
Yeah, thanks so much for having Matt, guys. And I appreciate y'all joining. That means a lot to me. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.